Cdn and security are not often used in the same sentence, at least not if we're talking about fighting piracy. But with the evolution of OTT ecosystems, this is exactly what should happen.
I think the ubiquity of OTT makes it the future of video delivery.
We are going to full OTT and we are going fast.
So is today's security good enough for tomorrow?
Clearly, no. That's why we are having this conversation.
Piracy jeopardizes the full value chain.
We have new security challenges.
We have to close every single window and every single door.
It's not just about content protection.
It's not about like we were doing in the past.
Yeah, so we need to go beyond DRM.
We need to do much better.
Service protection is becoming really key.
We need to protect the revenues of companies like ourselves that are investing a lot into content.
At Telefonica, we are not just super aggregators of content. We are also creating our own content.
It's really securing the whole ecosystem.
It has to be a holistic approach.
How can we make the whole industry align?
We all need and should work together because it's a common thing. It's a common problem.
Join me and these fantastic speakers in our panel on November 24th. I'm looking forward to seeing you there.
That's already the session, or is it the trailer?
Yeah, I'm taking notes now, you know.
Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to our live panel. So you see, this was just the trailer. Even Pedro said, well, maybe this is already it. So welcome, everybody. It's live and we're happy to see you here in our panel on protecting the OTT ecosystem, combining security and CDN. Indeed, a topic that's not often goes together, but today we're going to combine and connect the dots on why is it important to put security and CDN together to really address the challenges we have in piracy these days. So my name is Andy Waltenspiel. I'm your host and moderator today with four fantastic guests from Telefonica, Deutsche Telekom, Broadpeak and NAGRA. I'm going to introduce them in a second, but first a bit of housekeeping. This is going to be recorded, so in case you want to share it with your colleagues or your friends, so you can do that. You'll get the link via email after the show. We're going to have a Q&A. At the end of this panel, you can use the chat function of Zoom. You see there is a ask your questions here. Person in the call, send your questions there. We get to it at the end. You can send the question now or whenever you have them. We'll have a poll because we want this to be interactive. We want to hear from you, and you see the code now on screen. So it's polyv.com WMC 222. Or easier, just take your phone, scan the code, and then you only need to put the name, no emails, just join us, and then you will get the updated polls all the time. The first one, I think, is already on. Perfect. So far, so good. Excited to be here with you. So let me introduce you to the panelists. So are you there? Hello, everyone. Perfect.
Hello.
So
Hi.
We got Sebastian Kramer from NAGRA, Pedro Bandera, Deutsche Telekom, Javier Lucendo, Telefonica, and Javier Leclerc from Broadpeak. I will, if I mix up Javier and Xavier, I will just refer to them by the color of the shirt. This is the challenge here today. But yeah, let's go around the table and please introduce yourself and your company. And maybe Sebastian, I start with you.
Yeah, it's Sebastian Kramer. I look after product management for all our broadband products in NAGRA, which includes the security side as well as our business backend solution.
A few words about NAGRA, maybe, for the few who might not know what NAGRA is. Unlikely.
Okay, unlikely, yeah. NAGRA, well, our core business is security. We come from the broadcast world. I think we're making headway in the IP world. We're really focusing on pay TV operators, from telcos to cable to satellite. And our key theme is how do we move from broadcast to all IP, and delighted to be here.
Thank you, Sebastian. And Xavier Leclerc.
Hello, everyone. So yeah, my name is Xavier. I run the business development team here at Broadpeak. My role is very much focused on innovation and market evolutions. And maybe 2 words about Broadpeak. Broadpeak is a leader in video delivery technology, and we offer tools like an advanced Cdn that can be deployed into large ISP networks. And we'll be talking today about some of the features and combinations we can have the Cdn to secure those OTT platforms.
Thank you, Xavier. And Javier Lucendo.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Javier Lucendo. I'm responsible for video processing and delivery at Telefonica Global, which basically translates into all the technical activities for live and video on demand headends, so as our own CDN development and engineering. Telefonica is a big operator. We are present in Latin America, of course in Spain, and UK and Germany.
Perfect. And last but not least, Pedro Bandera from Deutsche Telekom.
Thank you very much, Andy. Very happy to be here. So I'm Pedro Bandera. I'm responsible for TV and broadband, what we call telco products in Deutsche Telekom. I think you know Deutsche Telekom, so it's the biggest operator in Europe, telecommunications operator, one of the biggest also worldwide, with 11 plus operations in Europe, plus also a big operation in the US. Thank you.
Thank you, panelists. So let's start with a test drive of a system. So let's bring again the link to the poll, please. So pollev.com/WMC222, or scan the code, and let's bring up our first poll. We're talking about OTT. So let's see, how many OTT services are you currently using? So Netflix, Disney, Amazon, Hulu, depending on where you are, might be quite a lot. So please fire up your browsers. You can use that on any device that has a browser, and let us know how many OTT services are you currently using. And since I don't want the panelists to take out their phones, maybe while the results come in, let's go around the table. How many are you using? So Pedro, how many OTT services are you using at home?
A lot. A lot. So the family uses 7 plus the actual DT service that is also now an OTT service. So I would say that the correct number today would be 8 services. So it's a lot.
8 is a lot. Okay. Javier, how about you?
Well, actually, I think currently about 3. So of course I use our own service. Then I use a long tail content VOD service, which I like a lot. And then I'm always switching from Netflix to Disney to other platforms. But to be honest, I don't keep the subscription for a long time, and just to test and see.
Okay, and Xavier?
Yeah, I'm probably, I think, down to 6. I'm trying to make a little list here. So down to 6, including my operators one as well, the OTT platform provided by Virgin Media, O2 here in the UK, so the Telefonica platform. And yeah, I think one thing for me, one service I particularly like is the F1 TV platform, right? So if you're a fan of F1, the OTT service is, I think, a very interesting platform.
Cool. And Sebastian?
I think I'm more in a category like Javier. I'm in the maybe 3 plus services environment, and I think it's more my kids who decides what we have, and it changes all the time, and I basically follow them. That seems to work.
Yeah, similar for me. It's 4 or 5. If Mandalorian is on, then Disney is on. If it's off, then Disney is off. So yeah, 4 to 5. So let's bring up the results from the audience, and let's see if we are in line with them. So, okay, majority 3 to 5, 75% using 3 to 5 OTT services, 17% 0 to 2, and 8% 6 to 8, nobody more than 9. Perfect. So I think that's setting the scene. A few years back, it would have been maybe 1 or 2. Now it's 3 to 5. Where are we in the industry? We're talking about protecting the OTT ecosystem. So there is a trend. It's going really steeply up, more and more OTT services. So I want to hear from Pedro and then also from Javier. What are your plans with regards to OTT? Tell us a bit, where are you heading?
So first of all, we are already there. So we are actually transitioning our services from what we call legacy, and that can be IPTV, it can be cable, it can be satellite, depending on the markets, to full OTT. So our core service is going full OTT. Besides that, as you know, our strategy for TV is around positioning ourselves as the super or the smart aggregator. So we want to aggregate all of those direct-to-consumer OTT content providers. So we are integrating them also in our experience in terms of content discovery. So OTT is becoming, it's no longer the future, it's becoming more and more the present. We already have operations in our footprint that are already launched at scale. So I'm talking about hundreds of thousands of customers that today are consuming their TV services through OTT unicast.
Okay, you mentioned in the trailer, you mentioned we are moving fast. How fast?
Very fast. So what does it mean? It means that we see the advantages of being full OTT. It's the best ecosystem for product innovation, for product integration, especially if your strategy is to be the smart aggregator, right? So there are so many synergies that you capture out of that. Because of that, we are moving very fast. So I can say that all of our countries are moving to OTT unicast.
Okay, I understand you can't say everything. You're
of course, Andy, you know it.
Company. For you, Javier, for Telefonica Global, you're in Spain, you have sizable country operations in Latin America. Where are you moving with OTT? And are you moving as fast as Pedro?
Well, we don't feel in the need of migrating everything to OTT right now. So at Telefonica, we have built a whole ecosystem around video. We are producing films and series. We are aggregating all sorts of content. And we're also creating live channels. We are doing our own playout. And of course, we integrate the whole technical solution. We are using traditional broadcasting methods such as DTH, cable, and IPTV. But of course, OTT is present both as an add-on to the traditional service, so as a standalone service. We have already many customers that are using just OTT. We still believe that some of these classical technologies have a role to play. So although we are observing a continuous growth in OTT, we don't have this same deadline for a complete migration to OTT.
Okay. And maybe, Sebastian, I mean, you're not running an operation yourself, but you're securing the who is who of big tier one telco. So what do you see in your customer base in the terms to move to OTT? What do you see?
Well, I mean, the move to over the top is really happening on a very structural basis. And as Pedro says, it goes fast in many, many cases. But I also agree here with Javier that not all operators, put everything on over the top. I mean, you need to scale the networks in a unicast mode to meet the latency, and the high video quality are still challenges. We're in the middle. I'm very confident that we will go to a full over-the-top world very quick, but it will change, many things. When we come from a classic broadcast world, we used to have secure networks. We only supported operator-controlled devices, set-top boxes which the operator own and can secure. So it was a very controlled environment, and security end-to-end was actually a fairly one-dimensional issue and a well-understood issue. Now, going over the top is not just a networking issue. It means you go from operator-controlled devices to open devices. You need to support any device in the world. That's what the large operators need to do. And we're confronted with security solutions which you don't control anymore as an operator or as a vendor. We have hardware, software-based DRMs. Some people protect the apps, some people don't protect the apps. Credential sharing and key sharing, because the endpoints are not controlled anymore, are becoming a real issue. And it's very different in the past, where we brought security measures into an operator-controlled environment. Now we need to secure the open world. And that is changing the equation fundamentally. And I think this is what this is a quite dramatic change where different actors in the industry need to work close together.
Absolutely. I mean, Sebastian, thank you. You're making the bridge to the next topic. So we're changing from broadcast in the past to more and more IP, OTT, even multicast networks, IPTV networks. So the question I asked, so is security of the past still good enough for today? And you just said it, Sebastian, no, it's not. But I also want to hear from Pedro and Javier. So how have the security concerns on your side evolved over time? So maybe Javier, you go first. What's changing?
Well, I think Sebastian did a very good point. In any case, as you know, there are many forms of piracy. But in the terms of protecting the content itself, I think that one of the most challenging points is where the content is consumed. So in the old days, the only access point for the customer was the set-top box, and it had a lot of drawbacks and limitations, but it was an operator-controlled environment. And the situation now is that you need to address so many different devices. And the consumer electronic ecosystem is a wide range of operating systems, DRM applications, and so on. So thus the possibility of security holes is increasing a lot, and it's becoming out of reach of just our operator responsibility. So I think that's the main pain point for us in OTT, that we have to protect ourselves, we have to protect our infrastructure, but when it comes to reaching all the different devices, we have a lot of dependencies there.
Pedro, anything to add from your side?
So I think Javier and Sebastian basically summed it up very well. I'll just add one thing. I think the game changer here that we have seen in the last 15 years has been the rise of internet and the ability of internet to actually deliver bandwidth and quality to video streams. If you think about, for instance, piracy 15 years ago, what people were doing was sharing control words so that other people with other devices could have access to content. Now the difference is that you can share the actual stream. Because the same thing that is enabling today these offers in terms of direct to consumer, and that's the availability of internet, also enables the pirates. So the pirates are enabled by the same thing. And this also connects with the fact that we were never very good at, as an industry, in terms of securing the outputs of devices, our devices. And now it's not only our devices, it's also third-party devices. So it's so easy today to get the perfect digital copy of anything that is premium content and make it available on the internet. So that's the challenge today.
Yeah, we'll not put the links to the pirate devices in this chat, unfortunately, or thank God. So, or we put it, and if you click, then a few people will call you and ask you questions. Xavier, from a CDN provider leader you mentioned, so what do you see in terms of security? It's not on your DNA, one might think, but we might be wrong. So
yeah, it's an interesting time, isn't it, for CDN, right? And just to set the scene, obviously, when you do OTT, you serve your content from a content delivery network, from a CDN. And you could say that is decoupled or maybe loosely coupled with the rest of the ecosystem, right, with the service platform. There are only a few touch points, and we talked about the past before with broadcast and IPTV, where solutions were more integrated. I think now we're coming to solutions that are more loosely coupled than fully integrated, I would say. So yeah, when it comes to CDN, it's there are a couple of things to think about, right? One angle we believe is very important is this idea of session awareness inside the CDN, right? So knowing exactly what's happening to your network and what content is being delivered. If you look across the board, CDN, they come in different range and different forms. Sometimes CDN can be very basic. They just, transact on an individual basis, right? So you ask for a piece of content, here's your piece of content. And what we're getting into now is this idea that as a CDN, I need to understand what's happening within my network, right? And this session awareness gives you this idea, I think, first for quality. That's very appreciated by customer to understand what's happening in real time. So if someone calls, we can track an individual session and know what's happening. And I think also for security, right? Being able to identify a particular session within the network then enables us to control it, right? So we're moving up in terms of intelligence of the CDN.
Okay. So I think it was Sebastian saying in the trailer, content protection of the past, there was just a one-way street, there was just one endpoint, the set-top box is not good enough. So we're moving away from content protection. We still need to do it, but it's not good enough. So what's next then, Sebastian? What comes after content protection?
Well, I mean, content protection we have done, all the time, satisfying content provider requirements. We call that compliance, right? And as an operator, compliance, of course, is very, very important. But then what you really want is service protection. You want to protect your own service. You want to protect your own revenues. And that starts, with protecting the device, protecting your operator app on the different devices through application hardening and obfuscation. That requires, of course, to protect the content, for example, with watermarking technologies. And then secure delivery through a CDN. So you have the different components of a security ecosystem, and each of them try to do an as good job as possible. As NAGRA, we started to put the watermarking on the content protection side together with the DRM, with multi-DRM solutions to bring that together with service protection. But many of the different ecosystems in the operator world are very separate. And we think that the evolution there is really bringing them together in a tightly integrated fashion. And, it's really about ecosystem protection. And to Javier's point on CDNs, CDNs usually, we always tried in the past to make them as transparent to the solution as possible. But actually, we changed our opinion on that, right? Because we can base everything on DRMs and multi-DRM as an anchor point. But actually, a CDN is also a great place to use as an anchor point for security. And we actually like that very much in that sense.
Very good. So I think this is a good point to ask the audience. So let's bring up our second poll. We want to hear from you. Where do you think are the biggest threats coming from? This is a picture I've been using many years back when I was still at NAGRA running partnerships there. So you put the bar, but if it's very easy to go around the bar, people will use it like this. Maybe it's a Kondelsky security border, but then somebody would have put the fence there. So where do you see the biggest security threats come from? From the apps, from the devices, from the network, from the backend, or from production, or something completely else? So we let you, all of you in the audience, put your vote. But again, I would like to hear from the speakers here. Where do you think, if there's just one biggest, most important hole to close, which one would it be? Pedro.
I think you know the answer from me. I think it's devices. I think it's the obvious one because it's the one that is overexposed to customers and by definition also to pirates. So that's the one that we need to work more on. If you allow me also just to comment, I think when we look at service security, something that we built, it's never something that you are able to protect 100%. It's more around making it hard in different levels because it's not impossible. You just need to get the right information available. And with the internet, the information is also available now to everyone. So you need to make it hard across the different levels of complexity. But then I think what will make the difference is what Sebastian was mentioning, is around accountability. So what you can do in terms of identifying that, yes, that stream, that is a pirate stream, is coming from that person. That with that accountability will come legal implications. And I think that's the only or the best way forward, because we'll not be able to prevent people from actually accessing the content. I think the industry has been at it now for 30 years. will not be able to do. So they will get access to the content. They will get access to a perfect digital copy. Now they need to understand that there are consequences to their actions, and this is the path that we, as an industry coming together, that we'll need to follow, and we can only do it together, not separate.
Perfect. Good. We'll get back to that point. We can do it only together in a bit. But I want to go also to Javier. So what do you think is the most important? You mentioned the windows and the doors. So which door and which window do you want to close first?
I fully agree with Pedro that devices are the weakest link in terms of getting access to the content. But this is a matter of closing all the doors. I mean, every single door. You don't achieve success if fighting against piracy if you just focus on one point. So, for example, pirates can get the content, and with that content, they are building a subscription, a subscription-based service for their customers. And I think that in the last report from the EU, it was stated that there were about 6 million subscribers to illegal platforms in Europe. So that's very relevant. But also they can get the content directly from your CDN. So you have to protect also the CDN. And even if you look at the service point of view, we are seeing during the last year a very worrying increase on DDoS, I mean distributed denial of service attacks. And in that sense, I think that our responsibility is to have an end-to-end protection, including the content, the infrastructure, and the service itself to our legitimate customers.
Good point. Maybe Xavier, you want to add to the CDN topic here?
Yeah, so
CDN.
Yeah. So CDN, CDN and security, you're mentioning at the beginning, it doesn't necessarily go together, but there is already quite a bit of security available in CDN, right? If you look at, the typical deployments, you will configure things like, geo-blocking, for example, to prevent access from, outside your country. You may want also to ban a particular host, right? So VPN endpoints, store exits, open proxies. So this is something that customers do today. You may use things like URL signing or token-based authentication to limit the number of requests that can hit the CDN at the same time. So that's a way, for example, to avoid some of the denial of service attacks. And you may also do things like delivery with HTTPS, right? So do some transport encryption to avoid man-in-the-middle attacks. But all of this is typically quite, organized in a silo, I would say, right? It's kind of a static configuration, and it's not something that we dynamically change today. And I think, based on what we're hearing now, it's very much the opportunity now to open the CDN and start working with other partners to have this dynamic link, to understand better what's happening across the session, to be able to say, look, this is a stream that is actually leaking onto, a pirate subscription service. Can we target this stream? Can we do something about it?
Okay, perfect. So let's bring up the poll results from the audience. So, and see what they thought. So same as you, Javier and Pedro said, so devices, the clear winner, followed by apps, network, backend, production, and other. So unfortunately, we don't know what other is. So maybe that's something to follow up after the show and dig deeper there. Sebastian, I mean, from your point of view, I haven't asked you, but if we bring up the results and Sebastian maybe, so what do you think? Is it the devices that was in the past, but you mentioned some stuff. You need to harden the apps, you need to protect the network, the backend. So what's your take on this?
I mean, of course, we have to do an as good job possible on the devices. And as I mentioned in the past, these were operator-controlled devices, set-top boxes, which were fully controlled. So we were controlling our own destiny, and that has changed. With open devices, we cannot assume anymore that the devices are secure. Even if all actors try to do a good job, there's always bad devices, which you can decide to blacklist, but then, as a service provider, you want to support all devices. There is always this dilemma, right? I mean, you want to support everything to reach your subscribers, but not all devices are secure. So basically, we're coming into a world. If you need to support all devices, you cannot assume anymore that all devices are secure. That means we need to bring different security mechanisms. And we heard here already from different people about managing sessions, right? So we're really moving to a new theme here, that we're managing secure sessions by controlling the content, not only on a secure device, but by a session. And on our security backend systems, on our security service platform, we know the legitimate users, we know the devices he's supporting, and we know the rights that user has. I mean, that's what we have on the backend side, and we can manage that via sessions. And as I mentioned before, when you manage sessions, you need anchor points to secure those sessions. We use DRMs for that, but actually the CDN is also a great place to have a tight integration of the different ecosystems here. So I think, just to summarize, device security is very important, but in the new world of open devices, you cannot always assume it. It's never perfect. And so the security has to move into the network and in the backend, and you need to manage it from there.
Perfect. I push it to you, Xavier. CDNs in the past, I would say, have been silos, but I think we need to break the silos. So how does CDN need to change, or maybe it has already changed, to really support that open collaboration type of new environment?
Yeah, I think we need to bridge across the components of the OTT platforms, right? This is what Sebastian is saying. We need to be able to share information and introduce new policies to manage the sessions. And this is where we can open up new applications. For example, managing concurrency, right? Being able to say today that a basic user gets one stream, a more advanced subscription maybe gets you 4 streams, and a premium gets you 8 streams, for example, similar to the Netflix model. This can only be enforced if we work across the CDN, the service platforms. We need to exchange information between the two, because today, even if we have session awareness, we know that a user is watching a piece of content within the CDN. We don't necessarily know more about the content or the user itself. It's, the analogy I would make maybe with, an Amazon delivery van, bringing a parcel to your house. The driver doesn't know what's inside the parcel, doesn't know anything about you, right? He knows he has a parcel to deliver. So the CDN is a little bit like this today. And going forward, we need to be able to understand that this is a premium customer, and maybe this package should be delivered before the next one, right? So it is in this dynamic link between the service platform and the CDN that I think we can create value and introduce basically new policies that today, are more or less, static, right? We can bring more flexibility into those policies.
Okay. Great. So, Pedro, revenue protection. Just in a few words, your summary. What are the most important things to take care of?
So maybe I'll go back to the point that Javier made regarding the doors and the windows, and just think a little bit that we as humans, and pirates are humans, we think very much around 2 things. So we are smart and we are lazy at the same time, right? So it's always the shortest path first. So if the door is open, or if it is easy to open, I'll just go through the door. The problem that I have, as per my previous statement, is that I do not believe that we'll be able to close the door. So it will always be much easier for the pirates to get in through the door. In this case, the devices. So my problem is, when I continue to invest as an industry in securing rights for content that I need to drive subscriptions to get that money back, how do I make sure that piracy is not something that blocks that approach? And here I go back to the need that we all as an industry need to cooperate on the accountability part. Because if someone is taking a stream either from me or the competitor and making it available either in my network or in the competitor's network, I don't solve anything if I just fix my problem. I need to work with my competitors so that we both fix the problem, because we are in this together. So my point around this is that watermarking is, in my mind, the way to go. Watermarking will drive accountability, but we need as an industry to come together so that we have the means, and they need to be real time or almost real time, right? If a big sporting event is on and we have a stream that is a pirate stream, we need to see who is the source, act on that source, close it immediately, but also act legally on that person so that it doesn't happen again in the future. So if this doesn't happen, honestly, what will happen is that we as operators, and we already find it so hard to spend the millions and millions that we spend on securing exclusive rights, that we'll maybe move away from that. And if that happens, it's actually a big problem, right? If you think about sports leagues and how they are supported today on the money that companies like ours make available for them, and how that money then cascades down on their business. So this is something that we all should come together. So operators like ourselves and Telefonica, and partner companies like Broadpeak, NAGRA, but also governments, to address this in a sustainable way for the future.
I mean, good point. So there's a lot of coordination necessary between the various players. I mean, there are anti-piracy bodies like the Alianza and others that drive that, but it seems not happening enough yet. So is it, I mean, you highlighted a few things, Pedro. So it's a legal problem. There might be countries where pirating content is not even an offense. So I guess where pirates go. So yeah, what needs to fall in place? What do you think, Javier? What are the extra, or Pedro, please feel free to answer.
Maybe just to conclude on one thing, and then I'll pass it over to Javier. We should not forget that we have two angles to look at this. One is the TV angle, the other one is the broadband angle or the internet angle. We also control the internet access to customers, right? So we can block endpoints, we can block URLs, so we can do a lot, we ourselves as internet service providers, also to help. And that's what I like about my role, because I have the left side on the TV and my right side on the internet side.
Okay, very good point. Javier, your thoughts. So what needs to fall in place? How can we make this collaboration work and have better tools in a better environment?
Well, I think it would be great to have this full end-to-end industry alignment, and it needs to happen. And I think that we will have support also from the EU legislation for that to happen. But before those standards arrive, it takes, well, quite a few time. So I think we need to leverage the mechanisms we currently have, or that we have to put in place new ones. I mean, we control the platforms and the networks, and in many cases, the apps and part of the devices. But the life cycle of the devices is very different. I mean, consumer electronics have very different life cycles to develop their software and to put them in place. So we need more effective ways, not just to avoid piracy, to avoid attacks, but also to detect it, as Pedro was saying. So that we are able to stop it in the right time. So that probably needs a very broad and intelligent vision on our own ecosystem. And that's managing a lot of real-time information with a really fast reaction time. That it comes to my mind that spot from Pirelli, I don't know if you remember it, there was this big black massive athlete on his marks, ready for the race, but he was wearing high heels.
Yes.
So that the motto was, power is nothing without control. Yes. So here it's pretty much the same. I mean, CDNs are meant to deliver speed, but a lot of attention has to be paid also to make them secure and have control on the content delivery. Obviously, we cannot live without a CDN in the OTT world, and CDN cannot be kept aside of the end-to-end ring fencing and securitization.
Okay. I think that's thank you, Javier. I think it's a good point to bring up our next poll, and that is we have a quiver full of arrows that we can shoot to target piracy. And we give you a little overview here of measures you can take. And we also see the polling code here again, polyv.com WMC222, or scan the code and participate. So what do you think, which of these measures will fight piracy most actively? Of course, we will probably need more. So is it content distribution, credential sharing, leak detection through watermarking that Pedro just mentioned? Is it joining forces with others in the industry? Or is it improving app security or legal actions? So from the discussion that we just had, I hope we would get something for everyone of these points, because apparently all of them are super interesting and super important. Just maybe, Javier, on your side, which of those have you already implemented, if you can share, and which are next? So securing content distribution, credential sharing, leak detection, watermarking, joining forces with others in the industry, improving app security, and legal action. I'm just reading them from my other screen.
Yeah, we are present in all of them. I mean, depending on in which, let's say, department you are working, then you will put more focus on one or the other. So, of course, for us, DRM, security in terms of encryption, protecting the content, that is there. We are working on watermarking, not globally, but little by little, protecting the most relevant content. We are working on networking, because there's, as I was saying, a lot of DDoS attacks. So that has to be seen as an holistic approach. I think that there is no way that you can only focus on one point and be able to win this battle.
Okay, Pedro, I think for you it's probably similar, that you're ticking all the boxes already.
It's the same. I'll just share a few words or a few thoughts on credential sharing, because I think that's one that we have been able to tackle as an industry, because we have tools in place. So, for instance, a basic social engineering tool is that if you make those credentials also associated with something that the customer will use to manage his account, to subscribe and unsubscribe to services, you have less of an incentive to share that with other people, because other people will be able to actually control your account, so spend money on your behalf. So that's number one.
Yeah.
The other one is what we do in terms of actual stream control. So I don't have any issue that I get 10 or 20 people actually browsing the application. The issue is actually access to content. That's where stream control comes into play, and the work that we do in terms of securing on the application, but also on the CDN side that enables stream control. So I think this area is the one that I see more progress. Of course, content contribution is something that has been very, very robust historically. It's not something that we have seen big issues in the past. So on my side, same as Javier, we are following up on all the boxes with different levels of intensity.
Okay, good. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a bit of time left. So send us your questions. I saw a few coming in, so more to come. Send us anything you want to know that we have not yet addressed, and we're happy to ask a few questions towards the end. But I want to, it's clear we need to close all the windows and all the doors. We need to work together. There's work to be done technically. That seems easy. Legally seems to be the bigger challenge. But let's do a bit the outlook. In 5 years from now, maybe Pedro runs fast. He will be in all OTT. Javier will have caught up, and some others for sure as well. Is this an uphill battle? Is it tough? Is there light at the end of the tunnel? What's your view? Are we getting there? Are we really getting there and fighting piracy better than we could so far? Whoever wants to go first.
I think we're moving at the moment, as we mentioned before, from securing individual parts of the equation, like, securing the device, securing the app, etc. We're now moving to the next phase by having a more holistic approach, by really securing the ecosystem from an operator perspective. In the NAGRA world, we're putting this all under the theme called active streaming protection. So what we mean by that is, it's not passive. We need to do something active, and we need to bring the different elements together. Of course, we have best-in-class watermarking technology like NextGuard. We have best-in-class DRM or multi-DRM technologies, all of those things, but it's really bringing them together, and I think we discussed that. But as Pedro was saying, each operator needs to secure their own environment from a content service perspective, but actually it needs to happen on a per market basis, because a single operator, cannot change the equation. And you mentioned Aliança before, the Aliança Consortia in Brazil, where you have the main local operators, the main vendors, the authorities, and the content providers as the main stakeholders all working together to fight piracy in the market as a joint effort, even though maybe some of them are competitors in the local market, but I mean, they have a common interest to keep the value high of the content. And we're running the operation 404 there quite successfully, and that's continuing. And these are really per market initiatives. We had a similar initiative in Germany, in Portugal, also in Spain. It depends very much on the local legislation, right? I mean, you have markets which are more geared to it. There is on the EU side many things changing on the legal side. So as an industry, we have to work together to evolve the security there, work on the operator specifics, but also work on a generic industry basis on a per market basis.
Okay, so that was Sebastian's view. Xavier, how do you see it from a CDN point of view?
Yeah, so we talked about increasing complexity and having the CDN doing more going forward. We touched a little bit about watermarking and server-side watermarking, when the CDN basically delivers slightly different versions of the content to each customer. And I think this is where we're going, right? This is where we're going, because with those mechanisms, we can create more accountability. We talked about it at the beginning, how we need the users to be responsible. And if you leak the content to an online TV or something, you should face the consequences of that. And I think creating this link and the link between the customer leaking the content, and then for us to be able to find it and then do something about this session, that's where I think there's going to be some work going forward. We can today already tear down some of the streams, but this may go against some of the legal aspects of that. We could decrease the quality of the stream. So this is something we've been talking about with ISPs, where if we identify a rogue session, maybe we want to turn it down to an SD stream for the time being. And I think this is where going forward, we're going to be working together to find more tools and find more easier and automated way to deal with those sessions, right? So creating, I think, the accountability and the feedback loop is really important here.
So a few years back, I saw a nice example where a pirated soccer stream, you would steal the ball. So you would see the people running around, but the ball is green and it's taken out. So if you want to see the ball, just subscribe. We know you're a pirate. Continue watching like this, but sorry, no ball for you.
That's brilliant.
Maybe that's a nice one. Pedro, on your side, what do you have to add? So where are we getting to, looking 5 years ahead?
So I see the light of the end of the tunnel, but it's uphill. I see the light at the end of the tunnel because I see more and more awareness. So this is a very good example of that, the fact that we all come together to discuss this topic. But the challenges are huge, because it's not one door and one window, it's multiple ones, and with some of them that are very, very difficult to close. So I think, once again, going back, and I will reinforce this for the last time, and then I'll shut up, the legal framework that we put into this is extremely important. Just to share one example, if you look at the US, piracy in the US is a federal crime. So it's prosecuted by the FBI and will lead to jail time. So it's not only fines, it's substantial jail time. So this is what the legal framework that we need to have in place in the multiple countries to prevent people from even thinking about doing something. And we should put in almost the same level the actual pirate and the person that is also in a conscious way consuming something that he knows is coming from a pirate. This is what we need to focus on for the future.
Okay. Point taken. Legal is super important, and raising the awareness for the ones doing the legislation in each of the regions and markets. Javier, your view 5 years from now?
Yeah, well, I think that this is the eternal fight between the goodies and the baddies. So I don't think this will come to an end. It will just become more sophisticated. But in the short run, I think that we have to focus on elements where we have not been so active. Like, for example, we have been talking about the evolution of the CDN. We believe at Telefonica that this is a very critical part of an operator's network, and there's a lot of future in it. For example, we are pushing on the standardization of CDN interconnection in open caching through the video streaming video alliance. Well, being more open does not need to be less secure. So on the contrary, it leverages the industry volume to establish agreed and proven security mechanisms. In the short run, we have in our roadmap a quite large backlog for enhancing security monitoring in our CDN. And in the long run, we have to come to alignments, of course, in the industry, because security has to be for the customer completely transparent. But we have to assume that there's a lot of complexity behind the scenes due to the variety of the ecosystem in consumer electronics, infrastructure vendors, DRMs, and so on and so forth. So we have to live with that. And there will be room for security technology providers to deal with that complexity and make it simpler to operators. But most important here is not just to build the walls, but also to take care of the day and night watch and have the capability to react in real time. So I think this sort of alignment is what we need to bring to the industry, pushing all of us, because obviously piracy jeopardizes the full value chain. I mean, from the content creator to the final delivery. So for all the companies in the video business, it's not just about social responsibility. I mean, we have to be aligned against it. No matter if you are involved in content production, content aggregation, content delivery, or any sort of business. I mean, our business is that customer enjoy content from legal platforms in fair competition. So if you care for your customers, piracy just cannot be ignored.
Absolutely. Javier, thank you. So I'm looking at a few questions that we got, although I think we already answered them. One was, what do you think is the #1 priority we need to work on as an industry? Maybe I just summarize what we just heard. So it's partnerships of CDN and security plus collaboration between the operators. I think we covered that. It's also influencing or maybe lobbying in a positive way. Lobbying has always a negative connotation. So make the legislation aware of the impact and lead with example like the US does. So on multiple levels, collaboration, partnerships is important to fight the pirates. It's not so much a technical problem, it's more a legal and how accountability problem. And there was another question, which devices do you think provide the biggest security risk? So maybe let's talk about that because that's one we didn't, we said devices, but which devices specifically do you think are the biggest risk? I don't know, who wants to take it?
Maybe just a few words from me. I think all devices that have an output are a security risk, because by definition they have an output. And I'm not even talking about an analog output, because nowadays no device has analog outputs. I'm talking about digital outputs and how easy it is to actually go over the security on those digital outputs.
Okay. My point would have been legacy, the very old devices, but you're right. As long as it has a digital output, it doesn't matter.
I would maybe, so the digital output, yeah, and then we know the PC, is a very open device and browsers. I mean, if you have phones, tablets, the IP streaming devices, they're all relatively close to some degree, but everywhere where you have an open browser, that's difficult to secure in combination with open interfaces. And that's, I would say, is typically the weakest point in the equation.
Okay. We had one more question, and it was a lot of public CDNs host pirated content, and they're based in Europe. And some aren't very supportive in removing pirated content. How can that be addressed? Maybe Xavier, you're the CDN expert. What do you think? What can we do with these guys?
So there was
Are they the friends of the pirates?
Yes, there was an interesting article recently looking at the various public CDNs, and I'm not going to name them, obviously, but there was one in particular that was hosting a lot of the pirated content, and people were asking this very question: why? How are they allowed to do this, right? And I think this comes back down to the legality of the legality aspects, right? We talked earlier, if you consume pirated content, you are, as bad as the pirate, basically, stealing it. I think if you are involved in delivering this content, you should also be liable, right? It should also be something that the law should prevent you to do. So I think going forward, we're going to see probably more legal actions against those CDN, similar to the ISPs that are able to block particular sites. I think we're going to see basically a CDN also being forced to not host this pirated content.
Yeah, I guess it goes back to your postman analogy before. So if the postman is shipping drugs and he doesn't know, and I guess that's what they claim, I don't know that this is pirated content, then what can you do? But the moment you tell them this is pirated, take it down, then they need to stop it.
It's the accountability again, yeah.
Accountability. We're approaching the end, gentlemen. We could still continue a while, but what I would like to do is let's go around the table, and from everyone, just a short statement. We have 2 minutes. So 30 seconds for everyone. So just final thoughts on protecting the OTT ecosystem, combining security in CDN, and I let Xavier go first.
All right, I'll kick it off. So I really like what Javier said earlier. Being more open doesn't mean being less secure. I think it's the opposite. Going forward, we're going to work closer together to secure this ecosystem. There's a broad range of collaboration already in the CDN industry. We do a lot of work with Telefonica, for example, in the Streaming Video Alliance. And, I think this is the kind of work that really will help us push the needle going forward. So collaboration is key here.
Thank you, Xavier. And now, Javier.
Well, I would make my statement about each one's responsibility. I mean, piracy is not about individuals sharing a content with a friend. It's a multi-million-dollar out-of-the-law business that threatens all of us. It jeopardizes not just the video business itself, but also the fidelity of our customers. So even if you look at it from a selfish point of view, at a certain moment, services that are not compliant with the industry security standard will be kept aside by content owners. So I think it's time to roll up our sleeves and start fighting against it with all the means that we have, each of the members of the industry.
Thank you, Javier. And Sebastian.
I would endorse the statements of my colleagues here that the industry, all the stakeholders have to work together here. Not individual security is good, but not enough. We need to bring all the different elements together. And we need to secure the operator-specific solutions, but we also need to work on a per market basis of the different operators, content providers, authorities working together to really fight piracy on a per market basis and not just on a per operator basis. And as NAGRA, we're working on both sides of that equation.
Thank you, Sebastian. And last words from Pedro. Final thoughts.
I think my colleagues said it all. I think it's very much we are at the point in which we are actually discussing the sustainability of some of the things that we are doing in terms of content. And that sustainability comes from our ability to get revenue out of our investment, like I was mentioning. So what will happen is that we are able we are either able to correctly address content security as a service end-to-end and protect type A of content. Let's assume if we are not able to do it for a type B, our ability to actually invest into that will come down, and the actual sustainability of that content ecosystem will be at risk. So, but I'm very happy to see that we all, as an industry, we have the awareness of the challenge. I see a lot of cooperation, not only with companies, but also between operators. And I do believe that we'll make this something better for the future. I also agree that this never ends. This never goes away completely, but I think we can do it in a much better way than we have done until this point.
Pedro, thank you very much. Well, and I want to thank everyone in this panel. It would have been great to discuss this over a beer at IBC, but this has been cancelled as of yesterday. I'm sure we'll have more opportunities to talk either in another panel discussion or face-to-face individually. It was a pleasure to have you here. I think we all agree there's a lot of stuff to do. We have a quiver full of arrows. We just need to deploy them. We need to talk and collaborate. Partnerships and accountability is key in the right legal framework. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to have you here. You're going to get the recording in a few days. Please share it happily with your colleagues who were not able to see it. I want to thank everybody and stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon. Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you.